The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
بعضی از این حرفایی که در این سفر رئیس جمهور آمریکا به منطقه مطرح شد لایق جواب دادن نیست اصلا. ترامپ گفت که میخواد از قدرت برای صلح استفاده کنه. دروغ گفت. ایشون و مسئولان آمریکایی، دولت‌های آمریکا از قدرت استفاده کردن برای قتل عام غزه، برای جنگ افروزی در هر جایی که بتوانند، برای حمایت کردن از مزدوران خودشون.
Well, the president has been very clear. He wants to solve this conflict diplomatically and with dialogue. And he's given all the signals. He's directly sent letters to the supreme leader. I have been dispatched to deliver that message as well, and I've delivered it. But on the other hand, we have one very, very clear red line, and that is enrichment. We cannot allow even 1% of an enrichment capability. We've delivered a proposal to the Iranians that we think addresses some of this without disrespecting them. And so that's important. There are all kinds of ways for us to achieve our goals in this negotiation. We think that we will be meeting sometime this week in Europe, and we hope that it will lead to some real positivity. And that's where we are, sir.
Is anyone in the Trump administration listening to the dialogue coming out of Tehran? There they are. That was from Saturday. There's the supreme leader and all of his supporters chanting death to America. The supreme leader calling Donald Trump a liar. He wants to make peace through power. He's using his power to massacre the people of Gaza, to perpetuate a massacre in Gaza. This is what the supreme leader thinks about the great Satan, as Prime Minister Netanyahu often says. America's the great Satan, and Israel is the little Satan. And both of them should just be wiped off the map. This is what they want. And they say it openly. It really is stunning to watch this administration talk about dialogue. We're going to solve this by talking to these jihadists in suits. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us on today's show. After a very, very busy and exciting weekend, we had our graduation for Armstrong College, our 23rd, I believe, 24 years of education God's way, education with vision. So we'll play, if not today, we'll play the commencement address I gave at the ceremony yesterday. Sometime this week. I thought it would be today, but I just kept getting more and more news items that I thought, well, it seems like we need to comment on this. And you saw it in the cold open. What is going on? What is wrong? As I said last week, what is wrong with our thinking that we're so willing to trust the human heart, even one that's openly calling for our destruction? My father mentioned this quote from Winston Churchill over the weekend. It's from 1932. And you see history repeating itself, really. Churchill said, now the demand is that Germany should be allowed to rearm. I mean, this is after World War I, and Germany had all these grievances. Germany started World War I, and we'll get some blowback from that comment, I'm sure. Germany started the first war and then wanted to rearm. And there were many leaders in the West that said, yeah, I think I like that. I like the sound of that. We'll sit down and talk with them. We'll have some good dialogue, some back and forth. We can trust them. Churchill said, do not delude yourselves. Do not let His Majesty's government believe that all that Germany is asking for is equal status. Yeah, it's kind of like Obama, remember? In Cairo, he's like, yeah, if all these other nations have nuclear power, why shouldn't Iran? They just want equal status. Don't delude yourselves. That's not what Germany is seeking. He says all of these bands of sturdy Teutonic youths marching through the streets and roads of Germany with the light of desire in their eyes are not looking for status. They are looking for weapons. My father made the point, building on a point that Manchester made in his biography about Churchill, that one of the things that made Churchill's communications, whether in writing or speaking, so effective is because of the precision, the focus, the laser-like focus. I'll play a clip for you just a little bit later from 2017 when Donald Trump had a much more laser-like focus as to what was really happening in Qatar, in Iran. He took out Soleimani. After all, what a difference in just the overall makeup and tone of this administration, this version of the Trump presidency, the second one, the second term. You heard the supreme leader there say, yeah, you listen to Donald Trump talk about power and making peace through power. America's using its power to massacre the people of Gaza. This is from Axios. It says, Vice President J.D. Vance considered traveling to Israel on Tuesday, but decided against it due to the expansion of Israel's military operation in Gaza, a senior U.S. official told Axios. So you have Donald Trump snubbing Israel on his trip last week. Now J.D. Vance. Yeah, why? Well, because Israel is expanding its operations in Gaza. Well, let's go back to why Israel's in Gaza in the first place. Because there's lots of jihadists not looking for equal status. They're looking for weapons, and they want to kill Jews. That's the precision, or the message with precision that the world needs. And if you're not getting it from the United States government, I mean, this, like I said last week, where is this headed? Where is this leading? It's leading to a spectacular explosion of violence all over the world. Axios says the U.S. official said Vance made the decision because he didn't want his trip to suggest that the Trump administration endorsed the Israeli decision to launch a massive operation at a time when the U.S. is pushing for a ceasefire deal. So here we are in this alternate universe of some kind where the thinking in the Jeroboam administration aligns more closely with the mullahs than it does with the Israelis. And so they skip Israel, they bypass Israel, they snub Israel twice now. Twice. It's, as I say, stunning to watch. There's the people of Iran chanting death to America, death to, well, the UK as well. Death to Israel, death to all the infidels. You have the Ayatollah calling Donald Trump a liar. Has Netanyahu ever said things like this? And then the one that just absolutely makes my head explode is Witkoff there saying, we delivered we delivered a proposal to the Iranians that we think addresses some of this without disrespecting them. And that's important. It's so important that we don't disrespect the supreme leader. And there's the supreme leader on Saturday, not just disrespecting the United States, not just disrespecting Israel. He's threatening us. He's looking for weapons. And we come along and think, hey, listen, we're going to be respectful, but we've got a red line. They've already crossed red lines, even in these past 4 or 5 months. Look at the hostage deal. You better release all of them the day I come into office, or all you know what is about to break loose. Well, what happened? Did all you know what break loose? Here's another red line, and it's one that Iran already says it'll violate. They want nuclear weapons. This is like, we've talked about Obama term 1, Obama term 2, then Obama with the fake presidency that everybody knew was mentally incapable of coming in, and now we come to find out he's had cancer the whole time as well. And that was conveniently enough covered up until the Biden people needed it to cover for, well, all the other bad news that's coming out with the Hur tapes and then Jake Tapper's book tomorrow. What a world we're living in. But anyway, coming back to Obama, 1, 2, 3. This is like, as far as foreign policy goes, this is Obama part 4. It really is. General Michael Flynn, you know about him. He tweeted yesterday, sorry, but this is not, speaking of Iran, this is not a regime we can work with. We can't work with Iran. This is one of the points my father made over the weekend in one of his messages. Herbert Armstrong, many decades ago, when he was traveling the world, meeting with all these world leaders, he had the opportunity to meet with, I think it might have been Yasser Arafat. And he's like, no, why would I meet with a terrorist? What do we talk about? They're not looking for equal status. They're looking for weapons. Now it seems like we're just eager to sit down with terrorists. I mean, you've got Witkoff on the Sunday shows yesterday saying, yeah, we might get it next week in Europe. They're excited about it. A red line. If you think about, again, comparing the two terms, I mean, in the first term, Donald Trump took out Soleimani with a precision strike. And remember what happened in the Middle East? All across the Middle East after that happened? Well, everything got real quiet and somewhat peaceful. Play this from Donald Trump. This is from 2017. This is early on in his first term, clip 6.
I have just returned from a historic trip to Europe and the Middle East. I addressed a summit of more than 50 Arab and Muslim leaders, a unique meeting in the history of nations, where key players in the region agreed to stop supporting terrorism, whether it be financial, military, or even moral support. The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level. And in the wake of that conference, nations came together and spoke to me about confronting Qatar over its behavior. So we had a decision to make. Do we take the easy road, or do we finally take a hard but necessary action? We have to stop the funding of terrorism.
Wow. We do have a decision to make. We have a choice. Do we take the easy road? And that would be dialogue, sit down and talk. Or do we confront? No, they're not seeking equal status. No. They want weapons. And what do they want them for? To kill Jews, to kill Americans. And that's what Qatar and Iran have funded. That's Donald Trump in 2017 saying they're funding, this is Qatar, they're funding terrorism at a very high level. And he talked about confronting that, whether it's financial support, military support, or even moral support. Now, you know about all the moral support that Qatar funds here in the United States. The moral support for Hamas, I mean. Yeah, they're sending billions over here to stir up strife on the U.S. university campus, to stir up support for Hamas. And of course, this all aligns with the supreme leader who's there saying, yeah, the U.S., Trump is a liar. And he wants to massacre the people of Gaza. He wants to massacre Hamas. And these are the people we're trying to make a deal with. Confront Qatar. Where is that version of Donald Trump? Does anyone know? What happened? What changed? I mean, this is pretty dramatic. It's shocking, in fact. He comes in, Donald Trump, his first term, he told Putin, hey, I'm going to blow up St. Peter's Basilica. And Putin kind of cooperated and quieted down. Remember how unpredictable he was, or he was seen as in the first term? He's not seen that way now. I mean, now the whole world sees that he will do anything to bring on a ceasefire, to make peace, quote unquote. There's no appetite for starting or getting involved in or engaged in another war for the Trump administration. No more foreign wars. And the foreign leaders, when they hear that, they love it. They love it because they know they don't have to worry about the United States confronting them, you see? Listen to this from JNS TV. This was from about a month ago, clip 3.
But the president is operating very differently in this administration. He's made those do this or else threats to Hamas 3 times with no actions afterwards. So that bravado, that capital that he had with the Middle East after taking out Qasem Soleimani in 2020 is gone because he's not sending Rubio over there to do this. He's sending Witkoff over there to do this. And Witkoff is employing a real estate foreign policy. Let's do business together. And in doing business with America, you get the protections of doing business with America. But what happens the day after when our adversaries want more than business, when our adversaries want territory? And that's what we know China wants. That's what we know Russia wants. And that's what we know Hamas and Iran want. They want to take territory away from Israel, and in that sense, when it comes to Hamas and Tehran.
He's exactly right. They're looking for weapons. They're looking for additional territory. And they're looking to kill Jews. And they did it on October 7. And it was funded by Qatar. It was funded by Iran. It was supported militarily by these nations. And now Qatar, well, they're providing the United States with Air Force One. They're gifting Air Force One to Donald Trump. Mike Pence came out and said he shouldn't accept that gift. And as Sam and I were joking, I mean, it's maybe the first time in 5 years we agree with Mike Pence. This is where we are. He's right. I mean, the bravado, the unpredictability, the capital that he had in 2017, 2018, 2019. And remember how many times, I mean, with Kim Jong-un, he said our nuke button or our nukes are bigger than yours. And then, Morning Joe would just explode in anger. How are you saying this? This is going to lead to World War III. And it didn't, of course. But at least world leaders were like, well, hang on a second. I'm not sure if he's serious or not. But all this rhetoric that if you don't toe the line, we'll blow up your most famous church. We'll take out Soleimani, which he did in that case. Where is that Trump administration? General Flynn's tweet, sorry, but this is not a regime we can work with. Sadly, the people of Iran, not those who kiss the ring of the regime, will live under severe tyranny until a leader emerges to raise them out of the ashes of severity and depravity. And then he directs his message to Donald Trump. And he says, after the supreme leader called Trump the liar, he said, no, the liars are the tyrants. And listen to this from General Mike Flynn. This is what's missing, as I said last week, from the Trump administration. This warrior spirit, it's gone. It's gone. Now you've got the real estate spirit. Now you've got the deal-making spirit. Now you've got a willingness to deal with any and all of this world, human nature, at its worst even. Sit down with the jihadists. If they put on a fine suit, I mean, listen, they're good people. And it's important that you don't disrespect them. That's what we heard yesterday. Don't disrespect the Ayatollah. Don't disrespect the supreme leader, leading the chants. Death to America. Death to America. He said Saturday, what Donald Trump said in the Middle East this past week, it's not even worthy of my response. I mean, is Steve Witkoff listening to that dialogue? It's not even worthy for him to respond? What a dangerous trajectory we're on. General Flynn says, whatever they say or sign will be meaningless the second they do it. There was another clip where Witkoff said, hey, they're going to manipulate you. And he said, no, I'm not going to be manipulated. Or if I am, we'll detect it. We'll discern that. So much confidence, over confidence. Now you see, you compare these two terms, Donald Trump the first time around, and then this time, the difference is stark, to put it lightly. In the article in Qatar's pocket, this was from the Trumpet website last week, it says, for years, the two major sponsors of Hamas have been Iran and Qatar. Iran is openly working to destroy Israel through Hamas, Hezbollah, and other proxies. Death to Israel and death to America are basically government policy statements for the Iranian regime. And these are the people we want to sit down with. We can't visit Israel. No, we can't do that. We've got to snub them and sit down with these people. It says here, Qatar, conversely, has cultivated an image as a moderate state open to dialogue with every side. It's one of the few countries Israel has permitted to openly send money to Hamas in Gaza. Because of this, Qatar is arguably an even more important sponsor for Hamas than Iran is. And President Trump, he said that in 2017. Qatar funds terrorism at a, quote, very high level. And we've got to, quote, confront them. We can't take the easy road. That's Donald Trump in 2017. When you're funding terrorism, when Jews are being murdered, when Americans are being murdered, when they're being taken hostage because of moral support, because of financial support, because of military support coming in through Qatar, why would you sit down with them? What is there to talk about? Equal status? Now they're looking for weapons. They want weapons in order to murder people. There's your red line. That's the red line. That's the red line that should be there. Always, always, always. Who was it? Margaret Thatcher, I think it was. Never negotiate with a terrorist. That's a pretty solid red line. And we've heard statements that maybe come close to that, but then if they're not backed up by power, authority, what good is it? It's just empty words. It says here, without the millions of dollars Qatar has provided Hamas every month, the mass torture, rape, and butcher of Israeli families on October 7, 2023 probably would have never happened. Without political and diplomatic support from the Qataris, the blight on humanity that is Hamas probably would have been eradicated long ago. As it is now, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have to bypass Israel because of their fighting to eradicate Hamas from Gaza. Can't do that now. You can't do that. We've got to snub Israel and try to reach out to the supreme leader who's chanting death to America. Trump is a liar. The only thing that the U.S. uses its power for is to massacre Palestinians. That was his message. That's his dialogue on Saturday. And of course, those that kiss his ring, as you heard there, they love it. They love it. They love the doctrine. That's the supreme leader's foreign policy doctrine. Death to America, death to Britain, death to Israel, death to the infidels. This, too, is from JNS TV about a month ago, clip 2.
And as we're going into Saturday, with high-level U.S. talks with Iran and Oman, Qatar has told Tehran everything they need to know about how to exploit Witkoff's, the U.S. envoy in this situation, his vulnerabilities, his weaknesses. And there are a lot of weaknesses based on what we've been able to see. And that weakness, the biggest weakness that I've been talking about, is his affinity for Qatar. And it's tied to a $623 million bailout in a bad investment he had in New York. Qatar was able to bail him out of that situation, and you got to question that. Is that disqualifying? Should that disqualify him from this position? I think it should. He's compromised I shouldn't say compromising that he is an asset, but for Qatar, he's compromised because they can push him in directions they want him to go. And he's continually done that. That's right. Qatar says, hey, we bailed you out. You better give us what we want here. He's compromised. He is. He may not be a Qatari agent, but he is compromised. That's the truth. And there have been many conservative commentators that have written on this. This is from, actually from one of our articles, March 24, a couple months ago. It says here, Steve Witkoff exposed the major flaw in his thinking as a peacemaker. In an interview with Tucker Carlson that aired over the weekend, he claimed to be in constant contact with President Trump. So it probably reflects a flaw in his thinking too. To Witkoff, everyone he's talking to is a great guy and a genuine peacemaker. This is most dramatic in his views on Qatar. Melanie Phillips wrote, Qatar's role as an honest broker in negotiations between Israel and Iran's proxy Hamas was farcical. For these purposes, Qatar was Hamas. Now, that's a message with some precision and focus. Qatar is Hamas. So where do you draw the red line then? Or with respect to Iran, the number one state sponsor of terrorism, where do you draw the red line? Well, everywhere that we draw it, these jihadists in suits, they keep overstepping it. And they're never held to account. And it's all the more so this time around with the Trump administration because they are out there. Well, Witkoff is all over the place. He's on the Sunday talk shows. He's sitting down with Tucker. He's traveling the world. He's visiting with Putin. He's reaching out to the mullahs. And he loves Qatar. I mean, they bailed him out. And then you have Trump and J.D. Vance virtually ignoring little Israel. What was it my father said back in January? Obama was an Antiochus. I gave this to you last week. Obama was an Antiochus, and he was negotiating with Iran all the time and supporting them. Is that what President Trump is going to do?
Well, we're going to expose that if he does. That was my father on January 25th, just 5 days after the inauguration. Is this really what President Trump is going to do? Listen to one final clip from JNS, clip 4.
This is kind of the weak diplomacy, as I think you've already said, that we were accustomed to from the Obama and Biden administrations. It's not what we expect from Trump, who had certainly a strong record in the Middle East during his first term. Is this just personnel here? Is this like, he's tapped the real estate crony? Because some of his previous real estate cronies, whether it was David Friedman or, Jason Greenblatt, it's like or even his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, whatever you might think of them, they came up with some better diplomacy. They actually achieved results that I don't think Steve Witkoff has a hope of doing.
You compare it to the Obama people, and there are some pretty shocking similarities. In some ways, it's even worse. This is from that same article. Witkoff exposes major flaw in the Trump peace deals. It says, for Qatar is behind Hamas, Melanie Phillips wrote. It created it, funds it, and protects its leaders. Qatar promotes the Muslim Brotherhood, the jihadi parent of Hamas, and hosts the Islamist propaganda news outlet Al Jazeera. Iran is an even more important player in backing Hamas and other terrorist groups, but Qatar has been an important tool. So the number one and perhaps the number two tools supporting Hamas and Hezbollah and Muslim Brotherhood and Al Jazeera. You've got Iran and you've got Qatar. And Qatar just provided the United States with the palace in the sky that's going to be Air Force One? Is this for real? It says here, Mr. Witkoff greatly underestimates the evil all around him. To him, Putin, Qatar, and even Hamas are all honest brokers with rational motivations. And then it quotes Witkoff, and we've mentioned this before. We've played the clips. I don't think anything can be solved with dialogue by clearing up misconception and miscommunication and disconnects between. I think anything can be solved. I misspoke. I think anything can be solved with dialogue by clearing up misconception and miscommunication and disconnects between people. One thing I'll say about the Ayatollah that you heard there in the cold open, that was a message with some precision and focus. I mean, you know right where he stands. You know what his aim is. He says it openly. He says it specifically. Death to America. Death to Israel. That's a very clear message. It's emphatic. It's direct. And then you have Witkoff coming in saying, well, there's a lot of misconceptions and miscommunications and disconnects between people. We just need to connect. We just need to sit across from the negotiating table at Oslo and have a good talk and figure this out. What was it that Richard Palmer said? It says, Witkoff greatly underestimates the evil all around him. We talked last week on the program about what God says regarding the human heart and our evil human nature. That verse in Jeremiah 17, verse 9, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I mean, who can know the human heart? That expression, desperately wicked, means dangerously sick. I mean, it's as if we're going around the world as diplomats, the United States diplomats. It's as if they're going around the world thinking everyone is fabulously healthy, mentally and spiritually. I mean, everybody wants love and peace. Everybody wants a good deal. Everyone just wants to make a little money. We're going around as if there's no dangers, as if there's nothing ominous on the horizon. That's why we have to go to the Bible for God's perspective, because God tells us it's real these existential threats, these dangers, they're all around. As I said last week, our educational system basically looks on human nature as being something that's just thoroughly good through and through. That's the fundamental flaw of modern education. Here we had our graduation yesterday. I had another story. I think it might have gotten pushed out of my notes, but just how rampant cheating is on college campuses today. It's all over the place. I mean, they may not be a hardened terrorist, but they're looking to cheat and lie and steal. It's just pervasive. It's everywhere. It's like it's in the air we breathe. And in these extreme cases, I mean, and a lot of it's motivated by radical religion. We've talked about that before as well. I mean, they openly state and chant and sing about killing the infidel, killing the unbeliever, murdering the Jews, wiping the Jewish state off the map. They're looking for weapons, they're looking for territory, and they're looking for murder and mayhem. And a lot of times they get it. And a lot of times they get it with the encouragement and the support, even if it's a tacit kind of encouragement, from Western leaders who are convinced that there's, no real evil around us. Greatly underestimates the evil all around. Let me just finish this segment with, this is from my father's book, The Epistles of Peter. He says, God is going to take mankind to the point where people will know there is no hope in man, and they are willing to heed God's word, the Bible. This is what, I don't want to go through Jeremiah 17 again, but this is what this passage is talking about. Look, you can't trust the human heart, and there's no hope in man. Our hope should be in God and His perspective and what He says about transforming our hearts into a heart like His, into a heart like Jesus Christ, into a heart like what David had. Acts 13 says he had a heart like God's. That's what we aim for here. Through true Christianity, true conversion, repentance, faith, baptism. It says here, the experiment of human government will prove itself a grandiose failure, and people will begin to recognize that they do need God's help. What a world that will be. When human arrogance has been leveled, people will be humble and childlike and ready to be taught by God. I mean, I emphasize this in maybe a few different ways yesterday at the commencement, that we have to be humble and teachable, and we have to look to God for answers. We have to let God get specific and precise in correcting us and giving us feedback, and then be willing to respond to it and to follow the instructions, to follow Jesus Christ's lead. What a wonderful world it will be when everyone's aim is to do that. When we come back, we'll get into just these revelations about, really it just shows how much corruption and fraud was covered up so that a fake presidency could be installed. And this is just, one of many stories that we could spend time on this show. It really is a world, just as Paul describes it in 2 Timothy 3, verses 1 through 5. So much more to get to in the little time that remains. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We'll be right back.
In 1994, Trumpet editor-in-chief Gerald Flurry asked, "Is Iraq about to fall to Iran?" It was a bold statement at the time, but over the next 20 years, this forecast became reality. Today, Iran is the undisputed king in the Middle East. In the early 1990s, we identified Iran as the prophesied king of the South. In the book of Daniel, it says this king of the south will push against the king of the north. These prophecies are being fulfilled before our eyes. To learn more about these incredible prophecies, request your free copy of The King of the South. This booklet examines the history and current events of the Middle East under the light of Bible prophecy. To learn more, please visit thetrumpet.com.
I mean, he must have had the best possible care here. I'm a little taken aback that it's this far advanced and very, very concerned about it.
But in the modern age of medicine, especially the fact that he was a former president, he had intensive state-of-the-art, care where we can see prostate cancer, 10 years in the past. So this is, it's very unusual to hear that someone has prostate cancer where they're annually being followed up. And the fact that we just find it at a Gleason 9 is just pretty much unheard of in this day and age of medicine. Even
President Obama had this test. President Bush had this test. It is a little surprising that the doctor didn't take it. And if he took it and didn't report it and it was elevated, that is another case of doctors not being straightforward with us.
It is interesting to note that President Trump's, President Obama's, and President Bush II, in their most recent physicals, in their terms of office, obviously 2025 for President Trump, did comment on their PSA levels. And so they got screened while in office, and they commented on it. It's not easy to access the most recent ones from President Biden. You can read, according to those that were able to, there is not a report of a PSA test on the most recent physical that was read out for President Biden's last year in office. And so
you believe that it is likely, just for those just tuning in, you believe it is likely, if this prostate cancer has spread to the bone, that he could have had it for up to a decade, but certainly it's likely. Would it be fair to say it's likely to have had this for at least several years?
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
So again, I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you are saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency.
So now he's diagnosed with cancer, and this comes just a day or two before the tell-all book is to be released about how mentally unfit he was for office. Comes out at a convenient time, shifts the narrative conveniently, as I guess we're expected now to have sympathy for him. And just not even consider how much damage was done to the country because of all of this fakery, all these frauds, because of this attack. America Under Attack. We have that book. It's available for free. No cost, no obligation. But go back and look at what has happened to the United States just in the last 15, 20 years. The Daily Mail says medical experts have declared it inconceivable that former President Joe Biden's aggressive form of prostate cancer was not caught earlier by doctors. I mean, presidents probably have more regular and more thorough checkups medically than probably just about any American in the country. So how did this go unnoticed? And if it was there and they knew, why did they cover it up? Well, you know the answers to these questions. They covered up a lot of things. The office of the 82-year-old former commander-in-chief announced his diagnosis Sunday, saying Biden was suffering from a highly aggressive form of prostate cancer. But upon hearing the news, some of America's top doctors questioned how a former president could be diagnosed with a late stage of prostate cancer, which can be detected early with routine blood work recommended for all men over the age of 50. I mean, it's detected early with most men. And here he's getting his annual checkup while president, while vice president, before that, while in the Senate, no doubt. It is inconceivable that this was not being followed before he left the presidency, says this one doctor. He noted that the test for prostate-specific antigen would have shown he had cancer for some time before the diagnosis, given how aggressive his form of cancer is. And then it goes back to his final year of the fake presidency. It says in February 2024, when Biden was the presumptive Democratic nominee, his longtime physician, Kevin O'Connor, deemed him fit to serve following a routine physical at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. He's fit. Oh, yeah, he's fit physically, mentally. It says Dr. Stephen Quay went even further, declaring online that it is highly likely he was carrying a diagnosis of prostate cancer throughout his White House tenure, and the American people were uninformed. I mean, this is Banana Republic stuff right here. They lie, don't they? They cheat, they steal. That's the spirit of the human heart. I mean, all of that flows out of the heart of man in abundance. Last summer, White House physician Kevin O'Connor swore to the American people that Joe Biden was completely fit for the presidency. No issues, nothing to see, said Johnson. Nothing to see here. Advanced prostate cancer takes 10 plus years to develop to the stage where Biden's diagnosis is. And it can be, as was said earlier, it can be relatively easy to detect, to find. But I guess not in this case. And then you think about the announcement coming out yesterday, right before the tell-all book, and just a couple days after the Hur tapes were released. This is from Sundance. Axios obtained the audio of former President Biden's October 2023 interviews with Special Counsel Robert Hur. In the first segment below, he says, recorded on the first day of the interviews, former President Biden was questioned about where he kept documents. Biden had difficulty recalling that it was 2015 when his son Beau died. Biden also shared that President Obama discouraged him from running for president. The interview tapes reveal the scope of cognitive decline the control agents around Joe Biden were trying to keep hidden from the country. As the tapes reveal, Joe Biden was not in any capacity to be in office. The question remains, who was running the country? Well, the answer to that should be obvious. The dear leader, of course. Now, he's since been silenced, and in the midst of all of these revelations, he's probably going to be exposed all the more. Sundance says there are not enough words to listen to these tapes and express the level of disgust that comes to mind. It's disgusting. The damage done to our country is horrific. It says, however, at the end of that review, we must remember all of the economic pain and suffering that accompanied the anxiety the handlers of Joe Biden willfully delivered to our nation. Well, God intervened to save America, but there's still a lot of affliction. A lot of affliction. Moody's, this is in the morning brief, they came out and downgraded the credit rating of the United States. And then you read all these headlines about the budget deal that Republicans are putting together and just how much we're going to run up the deficit even more. How is this possible? With DOGE, with a Republican administration now, with Republican control of the House and the Senate. It says here, as far as the Moody rating is concerned, It cited the government's failure to slow the ballooning of the national debt. Elon Musk was right. America must reduce its spending, or this ride will come to an abrupt end. People see it. People around the world, they see what's coming. They see that the United States is not going to be able to pay back its debt. It doesn't want to. It wants to spend more. It doesn't want to reduce its spending or tighten its financial belt at all. Our morning brief says this morning's stock market is processing the downgrade. The 30-year bond market, well, it goes through some of the stats. White House Communications Director Stephen Chung basically dismissed the downgrade as being a political attack from Moody's economist against Donald Trump. But regardless of how Zandy feels about Trump, it is undeniable that U.S. debt has been growing faster than GDP for 17 years. We can't dial it back. We don't have the will. We don't have the courage. We don't have a leadership that's operating with precision and focus, making cuts where they need to be made. It's just not there. It says here, before the 2008 financial crisis, the debt to GDP ratio was 64%. It is nearly double that today, 124%. And it keeps getting worse. Moody's explains, we expect federal deficits to widen, reaching nearly 9% of the U.S. economy by 2035, up from 6.4% in 2024. Driven mainly by increased interest payments on debt. It's just the credit card with no spending limit, and the interest payments, they just keep going up, and we find ourselves in this position, and we can't get out of it. You don't need to know Bible prophecy, Joel Hilliker writes, to know that America's fiscal trajectory is leading to the nation's ruin. It is simple math. But prophecy puts a few exclamation points at the end of that warning. It certainly does. It certainly does. You think of the Proverbs that talk about the borrower being a servant to the lender. This is where we're headed. And evidently, Republicans in Congress, they're not that interested in Doge-like cuts, in trimming the fat, in preparing for our future or future generations. Here you look at all these wonderful young people on the stage yesterday at Armstrong College, Armstrong Auditorium, graduating. There, as we say at the end of every ceremony, this is our future. We've been training them. We've been preparing them to take over the positions of the adults, those coming into retirement age. But what are we leaving them? It's criminal what's going on, just across the board. The lack of love and concern for even your own children. But again, look at 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5. It describes a society it's lacking natural affection. Just what should be a natural concern for your own family, your own country, your own government. It's gone, and it's every man for himself, and it's sad to watch. But it certainly does make you appreciate the work going on this campus that you see behind me. This is the beginning, a small one at that, a mustard seed-like beginning that will soon, just like my father alluded to in that Epistles of Peter quote, it will soon spread over all the earth. That's all we have time for on today's show, the fastest moving hour in broadcasting. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We thank you for joining us on today's show, and we'll see you tomorrow.